Greetings, family. Coming on today to talk about, I should say this evening, right? Because it's about, I think it's maybe 9 or 10. I just woke up. But it was an interesting day today, and I wanted to share about my day. So, got up this morning and I was ready to go to the beach. Thought about working out, but I was like, you know what? I just want to go to the beach. So, of course, Amon was still sleeping, so I didn't want to wake him. And when he got up to go to the restroom, I was like, listen, I'm going to head to the beach. He's like, Mom, I'm tired. I want to lay back down. He's always kind of resistant to do things for some reason until, like, I give him that push. So I told him, go ahead, lay down for another hour. But after that, we getting up. So he was like, fine. So the time came at about 11 and we got up. He was ready. We got up, went out to the beach. We had a blast. He was just there in the water. He was taking pictures, uh, just kind of standing in the water. He didn't go all the way in, but he did go in. And he spent a lot of time just standing there looking out at the ocean. And I laid out. We had a little adventure getting to the beach because we kind of had to go like hiking to get to the beach. So that was our first adventure. Uh, when he was on the beach, he just kind of, like I said, he stood around. When he came back to keep an eye on the things, I got up and I was just curious about these boats. Like there was a bunch, I don't want to say a fleet because I don't think it was a fleet, but it was definitely a bunch of boats at the other end of the beach, about a mile or so out. And I was just drawn to them. They were so colorful. And I assumed they were fishing boats because they were small boats. I could see the brothers from a distance working on the boats. I didn't know if they were bringing in fish or they were going out to fish. So I walked down to that end of the beach, Bruford Beach. And when I got down there, I was just standing there, looking at the guys. And some of them were telling me to come, come get on the boat. Some of them were just kind of waving. And mostly they were just polite, just being pleasant. So I was waving at them as they were working. And I was just really curious. The curiosity just kind of took over. So this one brother came, he was sitting on the side, and he came over and started talking to me. And he was just giving me so much information that I said to him, how do you feel about being on YouTube? And he was like, nah, I can't be on YouTube. And I said, why? I understand if you don't want to, but is there a particular reason? Excuse me. And he proceeded to tell me that, he was unattractive and that's why he didn't want to be on film, because sometimes people take people's pictures and do mean things. And I felt so bad for him that he felt that way and that he was told that he was unattractive. And I just had to lift the brother up the best way I know how. And I think we all have had issues with our bodies and, how we look and being very critical. And I know when I was younger, the big thing was, people, excuse me, people would make comments about, my lips. And it bothered me. It definitely bothered me, but I was prepared because my mother had full lips. All the women in my family pretty much had full lips, right? So we realized that was a unique character that we had. And, when I saw people without lips, I wondered how they talked, quite honestly. So it wasn't until I got older that I was able to embrace my lips, my body, my curves, my legs, like all these things, because we are made to feel like something is wrong with us, or because we're different, that it's a bad thing. But there is beauty in all of us, and it may take that special someone to find it, but it doesn't mean that we have a right to criticize each other, make each other feel bad. I know I have very clear skin, and there were times when people would be like, do you have on makeup? Especially when I tan, right? And I see people who have very bad skin, and they're very conscious about it. And I feel for them because I know what it's like to be self-conscious about something. For me, my defense mechanism was, before you could say anything slick, I was popping you in your head. So I got over that real quick, right? But now I'm older and I realize that you don't have to proceed that way. You just have to love yourself. It doesn't matter what anyone else has to say. So that was the first thing, right? I met the fisherman. We talked about the life of a fisherman. I was invited out to go on a boat whenever I want. And it was just such a good, it was a pleasant time speaking to the brother. And when I left him, I asked him, could I hug him? And I gave him a big hug, and I told him that he was beautiful and he is a beautiful spirit. And I walked away and I continued up the beach. And as I'm walking up the beach, I'm collecting shells. And I'm like, I'm going to give my baby a gift when I get back, right? So I'm looking at the shells. I'm walking up the beach, just strolling, kicking my feet in the water. And I pass a brother. I can see a brother up ahead of me, and I see him slowing down. So I'm not really sure what he's doing, but I kind of have an eye on him. And I remember him passing me when I was talking to the brother, the fisherman. So I get down there and he stops and he says hello to me. He introduces himself and he tells me that he works for the fishing company as well. He is the one that gives out the assignments. So we talk and he tells me that, he's just taking a puff. He don't smoke cigarettes, but he likes to, smoke to wind down on his break. And he's explaining to me that he's not a big smoker. He likes to smoke ever so often, And I'm like, listen, I'm not here to judge. Do you. You're an adult. Do you. So he starts walking with me and he's talking. And I'm saying to him, in the States, if you want a break, like they counting the break, right? If it's 30 minutes, you better take 30 minutes and get back. Or they're trying to dock your time or write you up. And he said that wasn't the situation with him. So he walked, he offered me his phone number so he could invite me out. He seemed to be a little older, I guess 30s, 40s, something like that. He was pleasant. So we exchanged numbers and talked about, he said he would like to bring me some fish. And I said, hey, you bring me some fish, I'll cook it, because I can get it in the kitchen. So we talked about that, we exchanged numbers. I left him, went back to where my son was seated. And by the time I had got back to my son, there was some unattractive old women with young guys. I'm going to leave it at that. You already know what time it is. So at this point now, I'm like, oh yeah, it's time to exit. And my son is sitting there looking like he's sick on his stomach, looking at the view. And he's just like, can we go? And I'm like, we sure can. So he packed up our stuff and we went back up our little trail, go back up the adventure trail, and we head back. And as we're walking back, we're on the side of the street where this guest house is. And I'm curious about the guest house. I had told the sister when I passed that I would come back, and I was hoping to be able to get some information on the guest house to share with you all. But as I'm talking to the sister, she's saying that she has to talk to the owner and find out if they'd be willing. And I was fine, I was just waiting. And she goes in and we're talking. She comes back. She says, well, you can take my number. The owner is trying to sell a place. I said, okay. So we finished talking. As we're talking, the owner comes out. And I see it's an older 25-20, And, I wave. I'm pleasant because I am standing in front of her property. She doesn't wave. She doesn't even acknowledge, right? So I said to the young lady, is this the owner? And she said, yeah. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm no longer interested in filming this place. And if you owned it, or this brother right here owned it, I would be interested. I would feature it on my channel, but I'm going to pass. Thank you for your time. The young brother that was there, he was very excited about talking to us and asking us questions. He asked if he could have like our number to keep in touch. So I told the sister to feel free to give the brother our phone number and maybe we all can connect and have a conversation. And I walked away. As we walk further down the street now, we run into police officers. They're sitting in front of a building. I guess they're security for this particular compound because they're outside the house, right? So very pleasant. As we passed them, we said hello. Mon and I said hello, and then they invited us to have lunch. They're like, come eat with us. And I turned and I looked at that big metal platter, and it had some rice, and it looked like chicken and some kind of gravy, what we would call gravy, right? And I was like, listen, don't play because I will come and eat. Because Amon and I were just talking about what we were going to eat on our way to when we got home. So they invited us to eat, and they gave us like a plastic pot that looked like a kettle to wash our hands. We washed our hands. They had spoons, but we were fine eating with our hands. They kept their spoons. They kept eating for a little while. The one officer got up, gave Amon his seat on a bench. The other officer pulled up a plastic chair for me. And I sat down and I ate with my hands, with my right hand, right? I was just going in. It was delicious. It was actually white rice with groundnut stew, and the chicken was kind of in the stew. And they also had the bitter tomato. And I've decided that I do not like bitter tomato. So they was talking to me about different ways you could cook it. I told them I had went to a farm and I actually brought home several of those tomatoes, but I didn't really know how to use them. Talked about some of my favorite foods that I like to eat, foods that we eat in the States. They asked us where we came from, talked about where we travel, just shooting the breeze, right? Having great conversation, eating good food and good company. And when I finally lifted up from my plate, because I was talking to them, I looked at both of them and they were just beautiful, beautiful, rich complexions, bright, shiny eyes, beautiful teeth. I just love being around all these beautiful people. Like, I don't get to see a lot of black people where I live at. So I just have so much appreciation for our brothers and sisters on the continent. They probably think I'm just giddy, right? Because I just get so happy when I'm around our brothers and sisters. But I told them, both of them, I was like, you guys are beautiful. Like, your complexions are just beautiful. I love your eyes, and they just were smiling and grinning. I'm not really sure that people give lots of compliments on a continent, but they always seem pleased and surprised when I say things to them. So the one brother was saying that he would like to invite us to his village to meet, I guess, his people, because he asked us if we had been to any villages, and we said we hadn't. And they were telling us how long they had been police officers. And I told them that, I couldn't see myself in the States sitting down with any police officers to dine. There aren't many of us on a police force. And when they are, sometimes that blue uniform is more important to them than the color of their skin. So it's just such a blessing. I have so much respect, and I thank them for their service. Our military people as well as our police officers on the continent. I know it's not an easy job, and you're probably not compensated for your service the way you should be, but know that I am thankful, I'm grateful for the service. We finished eating with the brothers, and another brother walked up, and he had bananas, and he gave us bananas, right? So I told him thank you. When we left them, I thanked them, I took their information. We proceeded to walk home. When we get back to where we're staying at the guest house, there's some sisters. There's a couple of little like tiny stores, like stands that sell different things. I could see further down the road that there were other stores, and I was just curious what was there. So I walked down past these other stores and to these other stores, and it's a sister that's out there that has oranges. I haven't had orange on the continent yet. Not from Gambia. So the sister cut the orange for me. She sliced it nice, was able to eat it, hold it by the skin, split it with Amon. I bought some candied nuts from her, and we talked a little bit. She told me about, her stand, and these were her children, introduced me to her girlfriend, asked where we were from, The girlfriend had a stand right across from her, and I ended up interviewing both of them to highlight, what they're doing. Good people, beautiful sisters. Then I go over and there's someone that has like a little hair. She does hair. She travels to do people's hair. There's another sister that does hair next to her. She offered her WhatsApp information. Someone was selling clothes. They weren't there, but I did show where they're located. And then we walked back to the house. And when we were walking back to the house, the goats were out there. So mine decides to throw the scraps of his fruit over to where the goats are eating the grass. We walk further down and we see someone sitting out in front of like the house under a tree. And I'm like, is someone sitting there? So I'm thinking it must be the goat herder, if you will. And it was. It was the gentleman next door, brother next door, with his baby sitting on his lap. He has his son with him, and he's taking care of that. So it was just a blessing. It was a full day. So when we came in, we got dressed, and I had made an appointment for Amon. I scheduled a meeting for Amon to meet with the melanated Mr. Mosley, as well as the happy companion. The happy companion was on point. He said 5 o'clock. I texted him at about 4 something, and I was like, is this going to be 5 o'clock, as in we're on time? Or is it going to be 5 o'clock like my experience with Ghana time, right? African time. He said, no, it's Gambian time, 5 o'clock. So sure enough, when I arrived, both of the brothers were there. These kings were waiting. And they were so receptive to meeting with my son and just having a discussion, man to man. And so I sat with them briefly, just told them that I was thankful that they took out the time to meet with us. And then I exited, right? It wasn't a room, so I will say that I left them in their space to conversate. I went on the other side of the restaurant toward the outside. And as I was sitting there, I was just observing everybody and kind of messing around on my phone. And they were playing really good music at this restaurant. And that restaurant is called Alibaba. And some young kids were walking by, and as they heard the music, they were kind of dancing a little bit. And I smiled at them, and then another one came, and he danced, and I smiled at him. And then they all came back, and they were just kind of staring at me, and I was like, okay. So when I turned to look at them, they all started dancing. So I asked them, did they want to be on YouTube? And the two little ones, two of them said yes. The rest of them kind of scattered and ran. And the two that were dancing, they just stayed. They stayed and they smiled with me and they danced. And, they asked me where I was from. And I showed them the recording so they could see themselves dancing. And they were just so tickled and so proud to be dancing, and be recorded. So it was sweet. It was just a brief moment. I love children, so they're just drawn to me for some reason. When I see them, I just smile. Or I wave at them, and I get the biggest smiles in return. So I sat and I waited as my son talked to the happy companion and the melanated Mr. Mosley, and they had a great they looked like they were having a great conversation. I could hear them kind of bust out laughing. They treated my son to a meal, which I thought was, it's just a blessing. It really was, for him to be able to bond with them. And we later on went inside the restaurant to do a recording, and the sister Ricky Denise walks in, Bag Family's younger daughter, and I subscribe to her channel too. She walks in with her best friend. They came to get something to eat. I told her how I like what she's doing. I follow her channel. She took a picture with us. And it was just a blast. I told her, let her parents know that I wanted to visit and I had been trying to reach them. So it was a full day. It really was a full day. So like I said, I just woke up, but I feel like I could lay back down. I think I'm going to take a little, going to wash up. I'll see what the water pressure is doing. Get cleaned up and freshen up and lay down and get ready for tomorrow. Not quite sure what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I think we have plans to do something, but I find that the days that I don't plan end up being the fullest. And the days when I'm not spending a lot of money, I'm just doing a lot of stuff. And when I left the kings of the Gambia is what I'm calling them, right? U.S. kings that are living in the Gambia. When I left them with my son, we proceeded home, and I had to get a van home, and I just, it was late, and it's like you really can't see. There's a lot going on. Dust is flying. Uh, we ended up, a cab pulled up, and I told the brother, he said, well, how much are you willing to pay? And I said, I only have a few Delasi on me, because I tried to go to the cash machine once again, and the cash machine was not dispersing cash, so I had to leave that alone. So I had about 41 Delasi on me, and the brother was kind enough to like bring us home for 41, and when it really was probably supposed to be like 75 each or something. So I told him I'm going to be sure to put his number on YouTube so that you all can utilize him as a driver. He was just a good brother, and he looked out, and so I took his number, because if I have to go anywhere else, I'll make sure that I'm using him to kind of compensate him for bringing us home. He didn't have to. We could have just stayed out there and tried to wait to get one of the vans, and that was how the day ended, right? With this, driver blessing us, bringing us back. So I say it over and over again. The ancestors are busy, and I mean that. Like, I think that they're just bringing us together for different reasons, and reasons that we may not even understand, but it's happening. So I'm gonna wrap up, right? This is a long video. I'm tired, so I'm probably talking like real slow, but I just wanted to make sure I got this information out, that I got to talk about all these beautiful people that I met today, and how they were just open